You probably playing college football 25 right now, huh? Well, let's talk about HBCU football and what it should look like in video game format. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It really is Monday through Friday again. We're back to 5 days a week until this time next year or until summer of next year. But you know who it is. I am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make it Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $20 off your first purchase. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look at the SIAC preseason polls and how two major coaching changes absolutely changed and altered the preseason polls this year. Prior to that, Talladega College has taken away their gymnastics program. This is sad news. I'm actually very disappointed to bring it to you. This is genuine disappointment, but we'll talk about what happened and what's trying to be done in the aftermath of it. But let's kick it off with a little bit of fun. You're probably listening to me while playing college football 25. So it really does give me great pleasure to say thank you for making me your first listen of the day. Thank you for making me a listen in your day, because I understand I have a friend who took off work for a week. You know what I'm saying? He had the PTO stacked up, but he was really dedicated. And I know that there's somebody out there who's just like it. So I appreciate you. You got me playing in the background while you're building up your dynasty. If you're doing that, let me know what team that you're working with. I'm not much of a gamer, but I always wanted to use either Louisiana Lafayette, or excuse me, just Louisiana now, or Tulane. The reason I had to go with those two schools is because HBCUs are not in the game. So if I had to do it, I would go back to my Louisiana roots, and I would either go with Louisiana or I would go with Tulane. So all that being said, what about the HBCUs? For those who are unaware of why HBCUs aren't in the game, there are no FCS schools. It sounds like they're not venturing over into that sector. I still hope that there's some sort of HBCU DLC pack, but I think we'll get into, or I know we will, because I wrote the stinking segment, so I know what we'll get into. But we'll get into the idea of what HBCU football should look like in a video game format. But for those who don't know, which is what I was starting with, you can put your HBCU into the game, but you have to go through Team Builder. Team Builders can't be used in online dynasties. They can be used in offline. Let's read exactly what the headline was last time. And this is something that we covered in May. And this was a kind of an asterisk and a note on the NCAA college football website, or the EA college football website. Team Builder content can be used in offline play now in private dynasty mode. Internet connection and EA account required. So basically, you can play with Texas Southern. You can play with FAMU. You can play with Jackson State, North Carolina Central, Howard. You can play with these schools. Heck, since you're making up your own school, you can bring a Winston-Salem State, a Morehouse into this. So you can play with your school after you create them. They don't exist in the game, but you can create a team and create that. Get as close as you can with the whole emblems and everything. But you can only play it in a play now, so a game with no stakes, and you can play it in private dynasty, but you can't go out on a regular dynasty and play that. Can't do a road to glory. You can't go be the starting quarterback for Alabama A&M. You can't do that, right? Just so you are aware of what you can and can't do in the game. But then again, most of you have had this game for about 12, 24 hours, and you know exactly what you can and can't do. So what am I doing giving you the rules? I ain't even a gamer in all of this. So let me tell you what I want to see. If I were to see HBCU football in a video game format, what would I want to see? And I spoke about this, I think, a month ago or 3 months ago when we were on here with Mason Smith, and we were talking about what HBCUs we wanted to see. But what should HBCU football look like? I think it has to have culture. It has to have culture, and I'm not sure if you'll put that in the EA college football world. I don't know if they'll do that because to me, as much as football is a big deal to me, I constantly reflect and I talk to some of my friends about Eddie George's comments about Tennessee State's attendance and how it dwindles after halftime. I don't know if you can have HBCU football appropriately in a video game format without having HBCU culture, right? Like, I don't know if the bands can just play occasionally when there's a touchdown. I don't know. I feel like you kind of, if you gave me an HBCU mode, that'd be so cool. That would be so cool in an EA world, because to me, I'm almost thinking that we just don't need to have a part in the EA game because the scope of HBCU football, I feel like you're going to need a little bit more care than the DLC pack can give you. But in HBCU mode, maybe you have Tiffany and Jay on the call, right? So like every week of yours is essentially the game of the week. Give me a celebration bowl at the end of the year. Give me a, but what I really want is I want a halftime. Give me the bands at halftime. I don't. It's very easy as the consumer to sit back here and say, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. I understand everything that I'm asking for is likely not plausible. You probably won't be able to get the moves all the way down, but if I can get some sort of band action in the middle of the game at halftime, and if it's not good, make it skippable, just in case it's not up to par with how we want it. But like, show me the effort, because you have to understand when you're speaking HBCU football, all of that is a part of it. Like I told you, I consistently reflect on Eddie George's comments about the attendance because I am a big football guy. I'm a football first guy. And the comments made me realize how much everybody is not in alignment with me. So I have to put the band in there. I have to. That didn't make me realize I need to put the band in there, but it made me realize how mandatory it was. Like, I would want the band regardless, but I have to have the band now. That's what it is. I'll take how HBCUs go in there. But if we're talking about how HBCUs should be in this game, I think that this is the way to go. And if it's not, I almost want to tell EA to pass the sticks to somebody else and see if they can get this game done correctly. Because to me, if HBCU football is going to go on a digital console like a PS5, an Xbox One, or whatever the heck they got now, I don't think the Xbox One is still, I don't think that's the newest generation. I don't think it is. I don't even play Xbox, and I don't really play games, right? They should have just kept going up by numbers. That's why PS5 is easy to know. But the point is, if you're going to put it on those type of things, you got to handle that and make it a full culture moment. Maybe I'm asking for too much, but I don't really think I am. Maybe you just need an HBCU game to be independent. Do a 2K. EA is not going to do it. They're not going to do another college football game. So maybe a 2K. Maybe you get 2K. I don't know, man. But for me, give me the culture. Give me the fans. I would love to play it in the EA game and go make them national champions, but that's probably not going to happen. Just realistically, that's probably not going to happen. So give me the culture on full display. HBCU mode is the best way to do it. There we go. That's my final pitch. This is my final pitch to EA, and I know I've been trying to ramble to find exactly how to put it, but that's because I wanted to come on here and just have limited notes, give completely raw emotion and just raw thought. I've got kind of a blueprint, but I think that if you're looking for the way that HBCU football should be in video games, if it's going to fit into EA College Football 25, the best, and I mean the absolute peak, would to be to give HBCUs their own type of mode, kind of road to glory-ish, where you can play week by week and you can have it be Tiffany and Jay on the call. Give me a celebration bowl at the end of the year. And then also, could you imagine a Bayou Classic on the game? Give me the you have to have the venues right. But then also give me the band at halftime. Allow me to have HBCU culture as much as I want it. That would be the ultimate HBCU football video game experience. Now, as you push forward, Talladega College, unfortunately, will no longer have the gymnastics program. They will no longer have that experience. This is disappointing, but the gymnasts are not going away without a fight. Let's break down everything that goes into this situation as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. And eBay Motors is the number one place for any of your car needs, right? Car wants and needs, right? Let's make sure that we highlight the wants, because we always sitting here and it's so pessimistic. What if you're broken down on the side of the road? I won't give myself that fake make fun of you voice, but what if you're broken down on the side of the road? What if the mechanic is trying to charge you an arm and a leg? Those things are real. Those things are real life. Don't get me wrong. But something doesn't have to be wrong with our car for us to want to do something to it. Maybe we want to add some LED lights. Maybe we just want to replace something because we're doing regular maintenance. All of those things come into play. And when you're looking at them, doesn't matter if it is something wrong with your car. Doesn't matter if you just want to make it more aesthetically pleasing. Doesn't matter if you're doing routine maintenance and you just want to make sure that you don't run into a problem. Regardless of if any of those three are your situation, go to ebaymotors.com. Get one of the 120 million parts that fit your car for sure. When you put your car into the My Garage section, go to ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day. Every day for your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On Sports Today. It's the first of its kind, 24/7, all-day live sports network on YouTube. So go ahead and check that out. Talladega College, unfortunately, no longer has their gymnastics program. And this is, to me, this was the worst news of the weekend. I really wanted to cover it. And the reason I didn't cover it on Monday is because we already had two big topics. And I like to put some of the bigger topics, if I can, onto a first two segments. Those are like my priorities, just to give y'all a little peek behind the curtain. Why y'all think I thank you every time for getting to segment 3? Not everybody does. So I like to put topics that really mean something to me on segment 1 and 2. There we go. That's the better one. Topics that mean something to me, not just the good topic, but topics that are important to me and I think important to you. I like to put them high on the list. So anyway, the worst news of the weekend was Talladega College canceling the gymnastics program. And I remember when I seen it for the first time, I was just scrolling on Twitter and I seen one of them big text pictures. You know, they say it was like, hey man, you know, black folks believe anything with big words. I said, y'all ain't gonna get me today. So I go to Google with it. So I go to Google and I type it, boom, 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 Talladega Gymnastics. That's all I put. I didn't put anything else. I just put Talladega Gymnastics. And it was about 3-4 articles that popped up immediately saying the program had been canceled. Now, that's where it got me. And I was like, I really sat there with disappointment, with sadness. I had never been to Talladega. I had never been to a Talladega gymnastics meet or a meet where Talladega Gymnastics performed. But for me, when I look at what that program represented, when I look at the success of that program, this sucks. To me, this is a tough blow, particularly for these two reasons. Number one, it had only been a year. You can't expect something to reach super high heights in a year. Sometimes it does, but you can't expect that. To me, to cancel any sport after just a year is rough. To cancel any sport after just a year, it makes me question if you really believed. And we'll get into the belief in the program at the end of the segment. But it makes me one of those things because it caps off time for growth. It's like a coach. You don't fire a coach after 1 year. You just don't do that. And I know teams do it, but I've never felt like it was fair. I've never felt like firing a coach after 1 year solely based off performance would be fair. Then again, this wasn't solely based off performance. So maybe that's the caveat I need to make sure I keep in my vision. Number two is it's a unique sport that had a high ceiling. And I think we saw that ceiling begin to be reached, or not reached, but approached. You saw them start, right? Because think about it. Anytime you got to go somewhere, you got to get in the car first. You got to crank the car up first, and then you got to start driving. And as you start driving, you get closer to your destination, unless you put it in reverse. And when I look at what Talladega College was able to do this year, I thought they were getting closer to their destination. I thought that they were making progress to fulfill the hype that was coming in from the rip. Because when you're looking at Talladega College, when you're looking at HBCUs and gymnastics, period, I've always thought that it was a great partnership. I always thought that there was going to be a lot of young black girls who wanted to come to an HBCU to participate in their gymnastics program. I've always felt that way when Fisk announced it. From that moment, this wasn't something that was on my brain from years and years ago, but when Fisk announced, I said, oh, that makes perfect sense. I want to see more people follow their lead. So when Talladega followed their lead, they get a round of applause from me. When Wilberforce follows their lead, and hopefully they're not going to retract anything, they're going to continue along this route. Hopefully they don't get scared off because of the quick cancellation. I'm giving them a round of applause too, because the partnership of community demographic in sport was just, it almost felt like a no-brainer. It almost felt like, why didn't anybody else do this sooner? So that's fine. Why are we canceling it? Oh, also, then you have Kristen Johnson, who, no, I had it right the first time. I'm dyslexic, but Kristen Johnson, you got to go with your memory. Trust your gut, all right? Because I saw my gut said Kirsten. And I was looking for the event that she has, so I got that right. And I thought I saw the R before the Y. So let this be a lesson to not be like the mouth of the South. Let this be a lesson to trust your gut. But anyway, Kristen Johnson won a national title as a freshman at the USA Gymnastics Nationals. To me, her winning that championship, that wasn't just putting your foot on the gas. That was stomping it. To me, that wasn't just, oh, good job. No, that's a recruiting coin. You can use that. That's recruiting currency to me. To me, when I look, I like that term. I have to write that down. But when you look at what Kristen Johnson was able to do as a freshman coming in, the first year in the program, and she goes to an event like USA Gymnastics National Championships, and she wins gold in the vault. She's a national champion. When you look at how well she performed in multiple other events, people don't talk about this because we don't really talk about almost, but you're looking at an athlete who, if she performed better in just one event, can't remember which one it was, but if she performs better in just one event, she is the national champion. I think she still ended up getting bronze though. So you're looking at an athlete who, to me, should have been boosted up. And I know that they're saying we still, how do they say, we're incredibly proud of our gymnast coaches and their remarkable achievements. I get it, but dang, this was supposed to go on longer. This was supposed to go on longer. And when you look at Dr. Walter Kimbrough, he says this strategic move is a part of our broader vision to position Talladega College to be stronger and more vibrant on all levels, ensuring that we can contribute or continue to provide exceptional opportunities for our students. Basically, they didn't want to dedicate the resources here anymore. And remember when I said the belief system was going to come back up later? This is a different president than greenlit this program. I can't help but think that is the reason. This is all speculation now at this point. But I can't help but believe that if the same president was here, we wouldn't have seen this. Do they have the money? Maybe not, right? Like, and as far as money goes, you can't fight that. But gymnastics is not going to be a priority. I can tell you that, and I think it's a perfect fit. Gymnastics is not going to be a priority for a president who didn't green like this, right? Like that's just, to me. And I can't remember if he was on the staff or not, but what I can tell you is that he wasn't the president. He's the interim right now. I think he got hired in June for that position. It's a tough blow, y'all. It's a tough blow because, to me, that comment says that Kimbrough's vision of how things are supposed to go didn't necessarily align with what the old president's was. Convenient timing, maybe, but I don't think so. I think that gymnastics cost some money. Probably didn't cost a lot of money, but it cost some money. And they said, you know what? We think this money can be better utilized somewhere else. And we're not high on resources. So we can't just be giving out money to something that we don't fully support, fully believe in favor of somewhere else, whether that be educational, whether that be fixing up some of the stuff, whatever it is. I just think they didn't want to allocate the resources to gymnastics. They thought it should be better served somewhere else. It's unfortunate, but that's real. And I think that's what happened. So that's all speculative. If anybody has some inside information, y'all can let me know. But that's what I see. I see a president that said, I wasn't the one who passed this through. We're going to go ahead and get this out of here so I can use this money for something else, because it's not like we have a lot to go around. It's an understandable choice, but it's a disappointing one at the same time. You look at the gymnastics or the gymnast, and they started a GoFundMe. Last time I seen it, it was up to nearly 10,000. It's probably above 10,000 now at this point, but we'll see. The GoFundMe lets you know that it was all monetary, but We'll see. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. I hope that they continue because I would love to continue to cover them. If not, we'll have one HBCU gymnastics program and we'll have another one starting up in 2026. I believe Wilberforce is in 2026. Now, as you push forward, let's keep our eyes on this year, 2024. The SIAC predicts how their conference will shake out, and the two biggest moves in the coaching offseason in the conference greatly impacted the preseason polls. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, for your second listen, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. The SIAC had 2 big-time coaching changes this offseason, and they both made major impacts, not only to their schools, but then also to the preseason polls at the SIAC Media Day. So, Chennis Berry went from Benedict College to South Carolina State, and Teddy Keaton went from Allen to Clark. Berry deservedly gets the majority of the headlines. When you look at it, number one, he went to a D1 school. He went to an FCS program. So that number one right there, he's the guy who jumped subdivisions. When you look at who he's been, he's a multi-time champion. He's a multi-time playoff appearance, has multiple playoff appearances. When you look at who Chennis Berry is, he was a guy whose hire was very anticipated. And let's not let anticipation be a small factor. No, when we anticipate something, we talk about it more. When we anticipate something, it's always pushed up. And this, I don't think it's being overblown. The idea that he's leaving a 2-time SIAC champion and going to the MEAC now makes this D2 news. It makes it FCS news. It makes it big time HBCU news because he replaced Buddy Pugh. All of these things go into play for why we would discuss them more, or him more, than we would Keaton. Like I said, deservedly so. He's the star coach. He was the biggest hire of the offseason. But what about Keaton? I wouldn't say that Keaton is an unimpactful hire. This is a big deal because he went from Allen to Clark. That's both within the same conference. And going from one conference member to another conference member means that 2 teams in a conference are affected, and you cannot deny that. When you look at Berry, it's obvious where he comes into play. You're losing your head coach if you're the 2-time back-to-back SIAC champions. And now people are going to smell blood in the water. It's on you to put on a good fight or put up a good fight. But everybody's going to smell blood in the water now. It's up to you to show that you're still a really high-level team. Sometimes you will be, sometimes you won't be. Depends on who that team is going to be. We've seen teams like I've compared Berry to Damon Wilson because they both went from the D2 level, stayed in state, went to the FCS level, specifically within the MEAC. Well, I've compared the rise from Bowie State to Morgan State to the rise from Benedict College to South Carolina State. But what about those universities when those programs or when those coaches left? Now you're looking at the only one we can right now, and that is Bowie State. Bowie State went from 1st to 3rd in the first year without Damon Wilson. Chennis Berry leaves, and Benedict College is predicted to go from 1st to 5th. So that's a steeper drop-off. But if you are able to get 3rd, I think that's a winning season. Honestly, I think that's a success. I don't know. I've never been in a situation where you've been this successful and then you have to lose your coach. I haven't been in that situation, so I don't necessarily know what it's like. Are you able to temper down your expectations to say this is what success looks like now? Because success under, for example, Chennis Berry wins the championship 2 years ago. You come back next year, success ain't just a 500 season. The success isn't a winning year. Success is making it back to the championship game. Success is getting back to the playoffs. That's what the standard becomes. But once you lose that coach, how much does that standard change? We'll see. We'll see. But so he drops down 4 spots, or Benedict College drops down 4 spots. Now Albany State takes over for them at the number 1 place, and they were part of a number 1 or a number 4. What am I talking about? They were a part of a 4-team mashup for the 2nd place spot in last year's conference standing. It was a bunch of 6-2 teams that were just having different overalls, but they had the same conference record. So now you get to Keaton. Keaton and Clark are projected to be 10th. It's not great. So 13-team conference, being 10th is not great, but it does mean that they'll win some games, which is something they didn't do last year. Literally, they were 0-8 within the conference. Allen, where Keaton came from, was 5-3 within the conference, and that was good for 6th in the division. So if you're looking at Allen and you're looking at Clark rose up 3 spots. Allen dropped from 6 to 11. And listen, there's no way to predict what they would have been with Allen, or excuse me, with Keaton. If Barry was at Benedict, I can guarantee you they would be number 1. I'd feel confident in that. But what I can't do is tell you where Allen would have been with Keaton at the helm. Maybe they would have been 7. Maybe they would have pushed up to 4. Who freaking knows? I can go based off of what they did last year, which would be the 6th best team in the conference. I can go Clark based off what they did last year, what was be the worst team in the conference. Those things, to me, you cannot ignore. To me, those things still play a part, and that's how you have to judge the slide or the rise. So Clark's going from being the worst team in the conference to getting an all-conference quarterback. Wright's predicted to be a first-team all-SIAC quarterback. He's not going to be the player of the year. That goes to the running back from Lane, but you're looking at Wright as a phenomenal player. And when you have a great quarterback, it's not often that you're 10th, but then again, you're going from winning no games. And even though you brought over 10 players from Allen, it's not like you have the exact same team. So these are things to watch. Maybe we'll get back in some of the SIAC things that we heard at Media Day as we continue with the weeks that come on, because with Media Day, you can spread them out. You can hear things and address them 2 weeks later because they're all predictions and looking forward to the season. So it doesn't matter if I cover this right now today, or if I cover it tomorrow, I'll cover it in 3 weeks. It's still going to be relevant in reference to the upcoming season. But I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about the SWAC Media Day. While you're hearing this, if you're not playing EA College Football 25, then you're probably either just finished watching the SWAC Media Day or you're preparing to get into it. No coverage today on today's show, but tomorrow we'll definitely talk about some of the more interesting sound bites and insight that we got from that event. Anyway, in the meantime, in between time, until next time we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed, peace.